This is where the build starts to get real. The VK56, Nissan's biggest motor they've ever made. I pulled the 5.6 liter beast out of a 2010 QX56 and bolted it up to the original 6-speed manual from the G35. The firewall? Gone. I completely gutted it. Cut, welded, reshaped, just to make room for this massive block. But it's finally ready. It's time to make it permanent.
Oh shit. This is ridiculous.
Custom mounts, final fitment, no more mock-ups. This is the moment the VK56 becomes one with the G35. Welcome to episode 5. We need to get this engine in the car, but before we can do that, we need to make some mounts. Right here is one of our old mounts. It uses 4 bolts on all 4 of the corners, but because our engine is gonna be sitting a lot further back in the chassis, the mounting point is actually going to be about 8 inches further in. So right here, I got some 1/4 inch, 4-inch steel. I had the pieces cut down to exactly 12 inches long. So these are gonna go right here. So now we gotta drill 4 holes in this 1/4 inch steel, so that's gonna be fun. Now, I did a lot of metal fabricating in the last video, but these next few pieces are going to be extremely important, not just in my choice of materials, but also how I choose to design these things. A welder's pencil. This thing f***ing sucks. I'm tracing the original mounts, that way I get the holes lined up perfectly. But here in a minute, you'll see that I almost made a ginormous mistake. Now it's time to drill the holes. Let's see how that goes. It was easier than I thought. The sharp drill bit makes all the difference. Now, instead of switching drill bits 700 times, I'm gonna use a step drill bit. Friggin' eats. And it works perfect. Hopefully that lines up. And it seemed to be spot on. Pretty good. With the wrong mount. Ooh, what in the hell? Oh, what the fuck? Why is it? Oh, is this the other side? So I guess the other side, the mounting bolts are different than on this side. Thought I just completely messed up there, but I think we're still good. Sweet. Didn't even have to make the holes any bigger. Hitting that thing right there. I think I might just shave that down with the grinder. First modification to the block. Cool. Oh yeah, that's perfect. Not touching anything else, I don't think. There's no way that flexes. All right, so we got all of the mounting plates made. I went ahead and whipped up this side as well. Just had to make a little bit of a notch here because it was kind of interfering with the block and this bolt, but really nothing too crazy as far as modifying these plates. I thought I was gonna have to do a lot more. We'll weld this 3/16 inch flat steel onto here and kind of bend it with our hydraulic press bender tool over there that I got in the last episode. And we're gonna use the original mounts that I had, which are these red polyurethane ones. They might be a little bit tall, so I can always kind of chop them down. They're just kind of like a rubbery material. The way that we're gonna do this, I didn't really like our mounts that we made last time. They're getting really close to the strut towers, and I don't really want to scrape up any of that primer off of there. So instead, we're gonna do this the easy way and just completely drop the subframe, and then we're gonna just wheel this thing in here. This engine support bar that I got a really long time ago. It just kind of supports on the aprons here, and this can actually hold the engine. Before we go ahead and do that, I want to kind of remove some stuff on here that might be in the way, like the intake manifold and the wiring harness. So obviously this stuff's gonna have to go back on for the engine to run, but for test fitting purposes, having the wiring out of the way is just gonna make life a lot easier. Let's get all this spaghetti off. And now comes the fun part of getting this front subframe off.
Where you want your nuts?
Oh, you can see it there, man.
This is fucking made up. Who's worked on this thing?
Probably the person before me. There we go.
All right, let's. Whoa.
Did arm come loose? What the hell? They're frozen on there. So I don't know what the hell is up with this because I replaced these bushings here with polyurethane bushings probably like 5 years ago, and they're completely frozen.
Oh yeah, it's moving.
Spacer.
Got another hammer. Maybe we can move it instead.
Big old sledge.
I see a gap now. So is there a metal collar that's gonna stay?
In the middle of it. It shouldn't stay, but I think it will.
It looks like it's gonna. Oh yeah, it is moving. Keep doing that, yeah. It likes that.
I know how it likes it.
Do you? It's taking a second to get it off. Oh yeah, there we go.
Feels like it's getting lower.
Yeah, it is.
Holy shit, I think it's out.
Oh yeah, oh yeah,
Oh, it wants to
oh
go
yeah,
up.
oh yeah, oh yeah. You're getting close. How in the hell is that holding? I might have shit myself. That stinks.
All right, so this is gonna be kind of random, but this is something that's very much annoying me. If you guys have a 350Z or G35 especially, I know that you have this problem. These things have automatic closing doors. As you see, it just wants to close on itself even when I try to make it stop. And I cannot get it to stop swinging. And you can fix that with a new door check from Nissan for $90 a piece. And I did that just before a company called VK56 came out with a cheaper, better solution. And these will fix your issue, but these aren't your normal door hinges. These are upgraded. And actually upgraded the spring over factory. And everybody knows the G35 doors weigh 500 pounds. So even if you have new door hinges like mine, they're not gonna stay open when you're up a hill. Now because I just installed new door hinges, this will be a great side-by-side comparison to see if they really are an upgrade. All right, just got the upgraded door hinges installed. Let's see how it closes. Oh yeah, that is way better. That is way better, and especially my door has sound deadening in it, so it makes it even more heavy. This is perfect. We'll test out this door just as comparison. Still feels okay, but it doesn't, like when it moves, it doesn't really catch itself. Like you still gotta stop it and then it will stop. But that side, it's just, you really feel that notch. The good news is those door hinges are not very expensive, especially when you compare them to the OEM ones. The OEM door hinges is $90 just for one. And for two of these upgraded door hinges, it's only about 70 bucks. If you guys are interested in the upgraded door hinges, make sure to check out VK56 with my affiliate link down in the description and use code ROSST for 5% off your entire order. VK56 has got a lot of cool products on their website, lots of custom carbon fiber bits. If you guys are still rocking the VQ motor, you've probably heard of the Motordyne art pipes. Well, VK56 makes their own and they're a lot cheaper.
Oh, oh.
With the subframe finally out, it's time to test fit the motor.
So this is supposed to come out?
That's supposed to come off.
What in the hell? Who installed this last? Yeah.
Some idiot. Welcome back to another video.
You're lifting, oh, you moved it. You just lifted an entire car. You gonna see?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's sketchy.
Just because I'm so strong is really why it's doing that. Holy.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't.
I need to work out.
Dang.
Damn. See, when you got a pecker like me, you got all that weight.
All right, I think I got it ratchet strapped good enough. We took the back wheels off just to take some of the weight off the rear, and it still kind of lifts a little bit. We just got to be careful with it. Let's go ahead and wheel this thing underneath. Now, even with all the work that I've done on the chassis, I'm still not expecting this thing to fit 100%. Based on our measurements, we know there's going to be some areas where it's going to be extremely tight. All right, I'm gonna lower it. The horizontal fitment is what we're gonna address first. Once the engine's actually in there, I can move it front to back or even up and down, or just put it in a position that visually looks good.
Very, very cool. Oh man, that thing is so close.
But if I clock the engine too far to the left or too far to the right, we're gonna have some repercussions.
Oh shit. This is ridiculous.
It's crazy. The original clutch line bracket was in the way. We're gonna have to relocate it, so I'm just gonna roughly cut it off for now. There we go, I'll keep that line. Okay, that's out of the way at least. With that out of the way, I just lower the core on the engine while Devin makes sure we're not rubbing anywhere.
Looks like it's made for it.
Hell yeah. And things actually seem to be going in kind of smoothly. Sort of in there, it needs to go up a lot more. We ran into a situation where these ends are starting to touch that right there and this one. So we'll go ahead and lift it up, and I'm gonna lob these off because I'm definitely not gonna use those. This was for like the power steering pump bracket. And I'll also finish cutting off the clutch line bracket. Most V8s, you could probably slap in this chassis with very little cutting. But in this case, I've had to cut out my entire secondary firewall, and now I'm having to cut the actual engine. Dimensionally, this engine is ginormous, and I believe that's the main reason you don't see too many VK56 swaps. And I had to say, the cuts turned out all right. All right, round 2. With those cuts made, the fitment should be a lot better. That head is tilted this way a little bit, so I need to kind of tuck it that way a little more. But we're gonna go ahead and put the strap on it and the strut tower brace. No, I'm not sure how much I trust this support bar to hold this engine, but also I'm going to put my trust in this ripped up towing strap. But per usual, this channel is all about taking risks. Well, we're doing a little bit of jerry rigging here. We don't got the proper tools for this, but we got a bunch of ratchet straps going around trying to hold this thing up because there's really no way to hold the transmission. I was planning on lifting this thing all the way up, but I'm kind of thinking maybe I don't need to actually do that.
Probably shouldn't do that.
Yeah, if this thing falls, that's not gonna be good. I can probably just put a jack underneath the backside of this transmission right there and kind of lift it up, and I can pull the pallet thing out that I made.
It's gonna be our anchor. This will keep everything safe, yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna bump it a little bit and we'll see if it holds it.
You think that's gonna all hold the transmission? It's not gonna...
I don't know.
All right.
Oh, is that it? I think that's it. Oh, baby, there it is. It's suspended. It's sketchy.
That is so sketchy.
We got the engine in, it's suspended. We just gotta make some mounts for it now. Luckily, I have a spare subframe. We can test fit it. Looks like it's hitting it. Yeah, the middle of it's like barely hitting it. I think that's gonna work. I might have to notch this thing just a little bit. It's either that or we lift it up a little bit. We gotta make a decision fast because these hydraulics are gonna bleed and it's not gonna be in this position for long. This is like a $40 laser level that I got off Amazon. So you can see our water pump, these two should be lined up here. I got the laser right over the crank bolt here, and we need to match that on the water pump here. So the top of this motor actually needs to go something like that. I think we're gonna have to lift it up. I think it is still sitting way too low. So now that we got this motor in the general location where it's gonna stay permanently, it's all just gonna be micro adjustments from here. The laser level is a great tool. I use it a shit ton in trying to get this motor square between the frame rails. Getting this 100% spot on is probably not super necessary. The U-joints on the drive shaft is gonna take up some of that horizontal misalignment between the transmission output shaft and the diff flange. But since I had the tools and the patience to make it perfect, why would I not? Well, it's next day, and last night we stayed up till 4 in the morning getting this thing mocked up exactly where I want it. This is gonna be my first time making engine mounts, let alone a full engine swap. I wanna make sure that everything is perfect before I start making these mounts. That way I can hopefully avoid any issues I'll have later down the road. I spent a lot of time off camera making sure our front subframe and drive shaft angles are correct. I also mocked up the power steering rack, which sort of fits. We're gonna have to do a little bit of modification, but that's kind of what I expected. I've also test fitted a few aftermarket products I got sent to me. We'll install those later in the video. Now, as you can see, our oil pan sits very low. It sits roughly 3 inches below the front subframe. I already have plans to modify this and also the upper oil pan as well. That's this aluminum piece. That's gonna be something we can do later down the road once we get this thing running. As far as my plans go for making these engine mounts, they're gonna remain the same. I'm gonna make some brackets on either side. They'll kind of go something like this. And once I get that bracket welded in, I'll start making some gussets to stiffen this thing up. For the legs of the mounts, I'm using 3/16 inch steel at 3 inches wide. This should be plenty strong for what I'm doing. And based on some other custom engine mounts I've seen, this might even be a little bit overkill. With both sides complete, it's time to get everything tack welded into place. All right, it's time. Pray I don't screw this up. Looking good. And here are the triangular gussets that I'm gonna make 2 for each side. I'm making this out of the same material and everything is going to be fully welded. I shouldn't have to worry about any flex with these mounts. We'll leave all that to the polyurethane bushings. The gussets are in. Let's get these mounts out so I can fully weld them. So we'll get these mounts out, clean them up a bit, and fully weld them. Any extra material that's not adding any support is going to get cut off. Extra material like that is just going to get in the way in the future. And behold, the G35 350Z chassis, VK56 swap engine mounts. Well, I'm pretty excited. These mounts didn't turn out half bad. It's not my best job welding, but these aren't supposed to be show pieces. I'm curious to see how these fit now that I've welded them, because it does look like the metal has slightly warped. If I put these together back to back, you can see there's a slight gap. I'm not gonna remake these. They're gonna have to work, so let's toss them in. I wasn't expecting this 1/4-inch steel to warp, so I welded up everything in one pass. It's definitely a lesson learned to not weld in one area for too long, or at least let the metal cool in between passes. Oh my gosh, guys, look at this. Look how close this clearance is. You can barely slide a piece of cardboard underneath there and the subframe. Looks like the clearances of everything else stayed the same. It just barely moved down slightly, which I was anticipating for with these polyurethane bushings. They're gonna go down just a little bit, but nothing crazy. I got the laser hooked up on our line and the chassis so that the chassis is perfectly straight, right down the center of the crank bolt and right down the center of the water pump. Just above that thing, just above that thing over there, this thing is freaking spot on. Now that we got the motor all mounted up, I'm dying to do this next thing. And that's throwing the intake manifold on. Oh my God, that looks sick. That makes the motor look twice as big. I just really hope that clears the hood. That's really high. So let's half-ass put this thing back together and see what it looks like. Oh baby, that looks sick. I cannot believe this. There's actually a ton of room right here. So if you guys are worried about front to back space, look how much room you have when you remove that secondary firewall. That engine is sitting so far back. The center of the wheel is gonna be right on the first 2 cylinders. This one might be a stretch. I'm not too optimistic about this one. I'm just gonna loosely set this on here, and to my surprise, actually not far off. It's actually not far off at all. So if I go to put the hood as if it was gonna be closed in the back, this is the gap that I have in the front. It's not terrible, but it is definitely hitting on the intake manifold. The plan was to not cut the hood on this thing. I was anticipating either having to get some kind of custom hood. I'd like to do the HR style hood that's on the 350Zs. It has somewhat of a hump right here that I think might give me enough clearance for the intake manifold. The thing is though, is I'm not super set on this intake manifold. I'd like to do something custom if it's not gonna be too much work. Otherwise, there is a bunch of aftermarket stuff as far as running different intake manifolds. There's a Chinese company called Deep Motor. I tried reaching out to them about their intake manifold and they really couldn't give me much information. Some of you that have actually bought that intake manifold have told me that it only sits about 1 inch to 1.5 inches lower, but honestly that might be all that I need. Well, I just put some ratchet straps around the transmission and hooked it onto some stuff, removed the jack, so hopefully it stays while I lift it up, because if this engine falls out, all right, I'm getting a stand under here pronto. Now we're gonna move on to making the transmission mount, which seems like it might be a little more involved than making our engine mounts. So if I measure the transmission bracket to where it used to bolt to, it's about 6 inches. I'll measure this side just to verify that information. And yes, it's pretty much spot on 6 inches. So that means this whole transmission has moved 1/2 foot back from where it originally was. After further investigation, it looks like the transmission is barely making contact with the firewall. So without wasting any time, I'm taking the engine back out, hopefully for the final time. Super annoying, but that's just what I'm gonna have to do to get this transmission aligned properly. There's actually two areas where the transmission was making contact with the firewall. The first one is this top piece, which I'm just gonna sand it down with a 40 grit flap disc. The other area was this casting mark on the driver's side. This was the main area that was touching, so I'm gonna take quite a bit of material down here. And here's what the finished product looks like. Hopefully, these are the last modifications I have to make to this transmission. So the car comes back down, engine bolted back in, and then back up so we can start making the mount. Well, I went ahead and got the transmission all mocked up. So you can see I busted out the laser level again, and I got it perfectly aligned with the pinion of the rear diff and the chassis of the car. Got it right down the center, lined up pretty good. I had to do a little bit of shimming right in here to move it a little bit to the left. Now this is not going to be super accurate because the car is not perfectly level on the lift, but from the center of the output shaft of the transmission to the center of the flange on the diff is about 1.5 inches. So I did a little bit of research off camera. Our drive shaft is going to be exactly 6 inches less than the stock drive shaft. I'm not exactly sure where you're supposed to measure the drive shaft, but I measured 58 inches. So with having that measurement and also keeping in mind that we have polyurethane bushings throughout the entire vehicle, which means we're not going to have much articulation. The maximum ideal vertical height difference between the diff flange and the transmission output shaft should be 2 inches or less. I got mine set at 1.5 just to make sure we're in that safe range. And also the horizontal difference, I found that you don't want more than 1/2 inch. I got mine spot on, so we'll have no issues there. To make the mount, we're gonna use the same 1/4 inch, 4 inch steel as we did on the engine mounts. And I'm gonna start by putting a 90-degree angle on each side. These are gonna be what actually bolts to the chassis, so I wanna make them as strong as possible. Having the 90 on there will do just that, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. To get the holes lined up on the metal, I'm going to use tape and trace the outline of the bolt holes. There's actually 4 threaded holes on this chassis. 2 are for the manual transmission and 2 are for the automatic. And instead of using 2 bolts per side, I'm actually going to use 3. That'll just make it extra strong and give me that extra peace of mind. Now with the 1/4 inch plates made, it's time to cut out some triangles and strengthen these things up. So right here, I know exactly what I'm doing. I made no mistakes, and I definitely didn't have to go back to the store twice to get more metal. What I will say though is this transmission mount was a lot more involved than making the engine mounts. But when it's all said and done, it didn't turn out half bad. Everything is still in line, so we just need to tack it in place. All right, time to take her off and weld her all up. Now the mount will go back on, and we'll see if it holds it. The VK56 and the manual transmission are officially bolted in the G35. Well, it's the next morning here, and I spent last night just cleaning up the shop and getting the G35 all clean. And I had to say, this engine looks freaking sick. I'm super, super happy with the placement of it. We actually have a lot more room on the sides than I originally thought. The clearance on the back is pretty tight, but that's exactly what you want. You want the engine moved as far back as possible because this engine weighs over 100 pounds more than the V6. The more weight we can move towards the back, that will help with weight distribution. Right down there is the tightest clearance between the engine and the firewall. We have over 1/4 inch there. And if we go down level with the fenders, you can see our intake manifold just barely pokes out. Now I'm super curious what this thing's gonna look like on the ground, so let's throw some suspension on it. Now because of the weight of this engine, I'm expecting the front to be slammed. There's definitely an easier way to do this, but I'm getting anxious. I wanna see what this thing looks like. Now, of course, we're gonna be running some coilovers no matter what happens here. But this will be a good test to see how much weight we added to the front end of this thing. We cut out the secondary firewall and moved the engine as far back as possible. That should save us a little bit of weight in the front. But how much? Oh, nice. Driver's side's done, let's do the passenger side. All right, the steering rack's not in, so I gotta be careful of the wheel touching the fenders or anything. Not really sure what the front suspension's gonna do. Hopefully the oil pan doesn't bottom out. Let's go ahead and lower her down. Let's see what happens. I think it's still on the left. Well, I don't know. No way. I thought that was gonna drop a lot more than that. This one's still holding it though. Holy shit. I think that is more gap than we used to have with the V6 in here. There's no way by putting this V8 in here that we lighten the front end up. 2 fingers, about 2 fingers. The back is 3 fingers because we took something else out back here. The back was always higher than the front. And yeah, 3 fingers again. Well, I was definitely not expecting that. I thought that this thing was gonna sag down to the floor. Let's check out the oil pan. Yeah, that's pretty freaking low. I'd say that's roughly 3 inches off the ground. As for the clearance of everything else though, pretty damn good. The transmission's not sitting too low. Yeah, guys, we're literally gonna have to lower this thing. I was not expecting that. I know I keep saying it, but weight distribution and handling is something that I'm really after with this build. I want it to be daily drivable, but I also want it to be track capable. And I know we're missing some stuff off the front, which is probably gonna add some weight, but this thing is definitely sitting up higher than it used to be. Well, I'm not gonna lie, it's been a couple days and I've been editing the video that you guys are currently watching. I made a little teaser for the video, hence why I have the hood hooked up. It's actually bolted up and I can see exactly where it's heading on the intake manifold. And yeah, we pretty much have a 2-inch gap at the bottom. I don't know if that deep motor intake by itself will do it, but I think that tied with the HR style hood, that for sure I think will get rid of that issue. Now I mentioned we had a few aftermarket parts that we were gonna install in the video. First one is gonna be headers. Now these headers are sold by a company called Flash Shark. I would consider them long tube headers, but the runners aren't as long as typical long tube headers. These are actually made for the Infiniti QX56. I believe they'll work for the Nissan Titans as well. And I've looked through a couple designs of the cheaper headers, because obviously there's no headers on the market that's gonna work for this engine swap, but this was the design that I thought was gonna fit the best. They're true 304 stainless steel, not magnetic at all. The flange is actually extremely thick. If you look at the OEM flange on the QX56, this one's way thicker. Each of the runners are 1 7/8. And what's cool is the collector actually necks down to a 2.5-inch piping. Most of the headers like this will go to a 3-inch collector. I decided to run dual 2.5-inch piping. That's gonna give me a lot higher pitch exotic sound with this exhaust versus dual 3-inch piping. The 3-inch is gonna sound more like a truck and the 2.5 is gonna sound like a sports car. Now obviously I'm gonna have to modify these, and the good thing is that these are actually one of the cheaper headers on the market for the VK. So I'm not gonna feel too bad about cutting them up. Let's see how close these are to fitting. Now this is gonna be a little difficult for me to show you guys. I'm gonna show you that these are actually pretty damn close to fitting. I made sure when I made the engine mounts that they weren't gonna touch the headers. So that is about as close as I can get. What is hitting now is actually the collector. And here is the driver's side. It's basically the same deal, but it's a little more exaggerated. Basically, the exhaust needs to go down instead of straight back. These will have to be modified, but they're super close to fitting. Now there's a few different designs of these cheaper headers, and these are definitely gonna be the closest ones to fitting for what I need. I think I'll be able to modify them to make them work, but there's actually another way that they fit without modifying them at all. And that is having the headers swapped and reversed so that the collector goes this way. I test fitted those off camera when I had the front bumper and everything off, and it was a little bit easier to slide them in there. But pretty much the flanges stop about right here. Now you might be thinking that that's where I'm gonna be setting the turbos, but I'm probably not gonna be boosting this thing anytime soon. What I'm actually thinking of is running an 8-to-1 collector right in the center. This is a picture of kind of what I'm thinking. So what does that do for sound? It's gonna make it sound way more exotic. There's a few clips on YouTube of a VK56 that actually has an 8-to-1 collector setup. Now that engine has some work done to it, which makes it sound a little different, but overall it gives it a completely different tone. And I think that would be a really cool setup for this build. And already having the exhaust manifolds pointed towards the front, I'll be set up to run a front mounted turbo setup in the future. So let me know what you guys think on that. Should I go ahead and keep the exhaust manifolds pointed towards the back and run dual 2.5-inch piping towards the back? Or should I flip the manifolds, run each runner to an 8-to-1 collector, and do a 3 or 3.5-inch single pipe all the way back? I think the 8-to-1 collector is going to be a lot more difficult, but I think it might be worth it. But now that we had the VK and the G35, what's the next step? I know that a lot of you are dying to see me do the wiring on this thing. For sure going to be the biggest challenge, especially for me. Luckily for me, I have an entire donor car, so technically if I swap the entire harness and hook up all the modules that came with it, connect the battery and ground, it should start. At least that's my theory. But I think the next plan of attack is actually hooking up the fuel and cooling system. I already have some parts for that in my arsenal. I mentioned we're gonna be running a fuel cell and a rear radiator setup, so that will be in the next video. Appreciate all of you for watching till the end. If you guys have any ideas, questions, or suggestions on this build, make sure to leave me a comment because I respond to everything. With all that being said, I'll catch you guys in part 6.